Hi there, I'm Katy-Rose. This is Ember. She says hi. So this year I learned a few things that work for me in terms of having, I suppose, keeping happy, healthy, motivated, that kind of thing. And particularly living in line with my values, kind of intentional living, for lack of a better term. So these are things that I've been thinking about as we come into 2019, the lessons I've learned and the kind of things that I'm going to be taking into the new year. Now, we are not taught how to access our personal power, how to control our emotions, how to know ourselves. So this is something that I think can be really difficult. And I am not saying that this is the only way, this is the way. I am not here saying, my way is the right way. Having a cat helps. But actually, these are a few tips I've found helpful. Maybe try them out if you haven't before, and if they work for you, great. If they don't, no harm done. We don't really know how to know ourselves, so you may know your favourite colour or what animal you would be, those kind of answers. But in terms of what lights you up, in terms of the things that when you're having a really bad day, what will make your day, what accomplishments can completely reshape your time, how can you make something feel like you're on track with your purpose and achievement? It's not something we're taught to understand and to uncover and to follow. So here are a few things I will be using in 2019 to hopefully make it a positive and fulfilling year. Number one is projects. So I have a history of struggling with depression and anxiety, and when I had depression, one of the techniques that I found particularly helpful was that way you focus on baby steps towards either achievement or joy. So you either do things that you find joy in or that give you a sense of joy, or things that perhaps aren't fun and aren't enjoyable to do, but give you a sense of achievement afterwards, so that you feel like you have completed a task that you needed to do. And I found the best way for me to do this was to focus on projects that gave me a sense of greater meaning. So I am someone who writes fiction. I wrote a few short stories and a couple of novel drafts throughout the couple of years that I was really struggling with my mental health. I went to National Novel Writing Month write-ins in November each year. That got me out of the house. It got me talking about my writing with other people, kind of get me a bit of socialization. So for me, it was about having a project that gave me that greater sense of meaning and taking those baby steps. So the first year, I just told myself, go to one write-in for 10 minutes across the whole month. This year, I went to about 5 write-ins and I stayed for a good hour and a half, 2 hours each time. So it's one of those things where you're building it up with baby steps, and it's taken me a couple of years because it's only a once a year thing, but actually it all still counts. The second thing is that I have begun wearing makeup more often. Just look like a panda, but we'll go with it. So the reason I mention this is because I'm nearly 30, and until probably this year, realistically, I did not wear makeup regularly. And when I say makeup, I literally wear eyeliner. If it's a special event, I'll put some mascara on, maybe some eyeshadow. Yeah, makeup is not something I'm particularly au fait with, but I do find that when I'm out and about, and especially when I go to my day job, it does help me to feel more professional, a little bit more like I fit in with people, a little bit more confident with it. So that's something that I found very helpful. Equally, I dyed my hair. That's something I've been experimenting with this year in terms of how my appearance impacts my mood and how much I get done, for example. Step number 3 that I'm going to be taking into 2019 is around playing video games. So this is not something I think that is probably on most people's happy, healthy and motivated lists, but I've really gone back and forth with video games. So I played, Tomb Raider, Lara Croft, the original ones when I was a kid. I then kind of got into like board games and card games, and then when I went to college, I discovered some of the more role-playing, Magic the Gathering type games. I've never played Dungeons and Dragons, but like a couple of RPG type things where you level up a character and they're a thief or an assassin, you know. I've never really considered myself a true gamer, but I do play video games multiple times a week. I do this as a kind of stress reliever. I do it as a way of kind of understanding story and plot. So because I write fiction, actually following games that have good storylines is really useful in seeing where the plot points are, how the characterization and settings work together, etc. I will say that I don't tend to play the same games as most people I know. But yeah, so those kind of questing games can really give me a break from life. They can remind me of some of my aspirations. So actually I do tend to think of gamifying my life a lot and kind of what loot I want when I reach my goals in life, and kind of if I'm leveling up every year by completing my goals. So for me, gaming is definitely something not to be ignored. As I mentioned earlier, I write fiction. So one of my other projects, one of the things that I'm taking as 2019 is novelling. I think over the last 3 years, I think I've written around 350,000 words of fiction. 1 year I wrote 150,000, 1 year I wrote 100,000. I think I wrote 90 last year. So that is something that I have got into a habit of doing since 2009. And I work on a new story every year. I work on short stories that I submit. I've had a few published in anthologies and things by small presses. So writing is a big part of my identity. But this year, I think I've written 50,000, 58,000. I have not written a lot this year because I put it on the back burner because I had a lot of other things going on this year. And I think coming back to it after a year of barely writing has really helped reignite that kind of spark in me because I have a lot of stories I want to tell. So although what I'm taking in is novelling, actually the lesson I'm taking into the next year is that it's okay to put something on pause, to put a goal on pause and come back to it a bit later. So every year I aim for 100,000 new words and I'm nowhere near it this year. But actually, I do think I'll be able to do it next year because I've had this year of a break, having written a large portion every year for 9 years. It seems to be making sense that I took a break from it. The next thing I'm going to be taking in is intentional living. So some people might call it mindfulness, other people might call it minimalism, decluttering, that kind of thing. I have really this year started to understand my purpose and how I can live in alignment with it. And it is about having intentions and doing things on purpose as well as having purpose. So yes, I've been doing a little bit of decluttering here and there. I'm trying to build habits that I can tidy my space regularly, that I don't need too many excess things in my life, that I'm focused more on experiences than items. There's definitely a lot of the kind of minimalism aspect, but it is also things like, do I actually want this chocolate bar or would I rather have a piece of toast? It's really about being a bit more aware and a bit more mindful of the choices I make with my time. So yesterday I decided to go for a run because my friend asked me to go with her. And then I came home and I slept for 5 hours and I thought, well, that hasn't been particularly intentional. And then today I got up at 7 and it's now coming up to 6 p.m. and I'm feeling full of energy and I'm recording videos and, you know, it's all going well. So I think intentional living, whatever that means to you and however it shows up for you, for me, I find that is an energizing thing. If I focus on my purpose, on my inner fire, the drive that's pushing me to keep going or to do new things, then I can go forever in a way. I do also have a video on what intentional living is. If it's not out already, when it's out, I will pop a link in the description. The next thing that I'm going to be taking into 2019 is comfortable clothing. So I'm not going to go into too many details, but I spent a lot of time in the last year or two eating and sleeping. And haven't often got clothes that have changed with my body shape and size. So all the way from having a lot of backache and realizing I'm wearing the wrong size of bra, through to actually I'm having trouble with my feet, and it's because the shoes aren't working for me, either the size or the shape or the style. And that's caused me pain. And now I've reached a point where I feel like I have just about got the balance, and obviously it'll change as things change. And now we've got winter, I've had to change my socks because actually I was getting cold toes because the socks I was wearing were very thin. So it is about comfortable clothing, about what works for you at that time, and also kind of listening to your body. So being a little bit more intuitive with when your body is giving you signals, responding to it and not just ignoring them. I think that was my main lesson for this year. And then the final thing that I'm going to be taking into 2019 that I've learned in 2018 in terms of being happy, healthy and motivated is some of the lessons and kind of hacks around energy. So for me, the list would be caffeine, so paying attention to how much green tea, how much coffee. I don't really drink normal tea. How much, a Lady Grey tea that I have, the ones that are caffeinated versus the herbal ones that aren't. Alcohol, I'm not someone who drinks a great deal. I probably drink 1 to 2 times a month, and I'll have either 2 glasses of wine or quite often half a can of cider. I don't usually get through the whole thing. So alcohol is not something that I particularly struggle with, but it is something that I know has an impact on my energy levels, particularly a couple of days afterwards. Sugar is a big one, kind of balanced with carbs, I guess. So actually thinking about my diet and what am I eating and when am I having the energy slumps? Is it a sugar crash? Is it the fact that I've had, I call it pizza coma, is it that you've had a load of carbs and then, whatever the scientific term for is. This year I started taking vitamin D supplement every day following a blood test with my GP where they said the only thing we can really find is possibly this, try it. So I've been taking vitamin D since kind of March time, I think, every single day. I don't feel like I've necessarily noticed a major difference, but I haven't had any negative side effects, so I'm going to keep going with it. In terms of energy hacks, exercise, which can feel a bit counterintuitive if you're feeling completely sluggish. The idea of then getting up and doing some exercise just feels ridiculous. But it is also the thing that tends to work. So it gets our body moving, it gets some of those chemicals of adrenaline and things like that going, which then will lead us to a sense of energy. And one of the things they talk about in cognitive behavioral therapy with depression is that we can get in this cycle of inactivity, which leads us to low mood and not wanting to move, which then leads us to further inactivity. And it's almost like you need to be active and exercise for your body to have a reason to create more energy and to release more energy. Because if you're only sitting on the sofa every day for weeks and weeks on end, there's no reason for your body to create the thing that will make you feel energized and like you want to go for a run. Whereas if you're running, your body has to respond to the stimulus you're giving it. So exercise is a huge one I'm hoping to get back into a routine of in 2019. Water is another one. I used to drink a lot of water. I have tended to switch it out for green tea or herbal teas now, and I would like to get back to drinking water, particularly first thing in the morning, clear my head. Sleep is another big one. So energy hacks in terms of actually getting a restful night's sleep, having a nap, but having a nap at a sensible hour and only for a sensible amount of time so that you're not then missing out on sleep the next night. That will be different for everyone. I did not nap until I was about 26, 27. I started having difficulties with energy and time off work and things. That's when I found that I would nap every day. It's just not something I do when I'm well. So I find it doesn't work for me. But you know you best and you know your body best. And finally, the last thing for energy is actually around meditation and mindfulness. So again, we're not talking about having formal meditation for hours a day and how that's going to impact things, but actually doing a little check-in here and there, making a note of the transitional periods. So if I'm waiting for the kettle to boil, taking a few steadying breaths, becoming really aware of my surroundings. Am I hot, cold, tired, hungry, thirsty? Doing a bit of check-in, so that I can catch any sort of lowering energy before it gets too low, before it gets into a slump, so that I can manage it from there. So those are my personal tips for what I've learned about being happy, healthy and motivated in 2018. And therefore, those are the things that I'm going to be taking into 2019. As I said before, this is not a here's the list of all the things you should do. It's just a list of things I have learned this year that might be worth looking at and might be worth trying out for yourself to see if they help. I would love to hear in the comments below if you've got any ideas if you have any thoughts around what made you happy, healthy and motivated this year and what you're going to take into the next year. If you haven't subscribed already, please do subscribe to my channel for further updates around intentional living, well-being and motivation and personal power. And I will also leave a couple of links to some of the videos that I mentioned as I was going through down the bottom. So I will leave a link to videos around intentional living and stuff in the description, so do check those out. Thanks very much for watching. I appreciate you so much. As I said, if you found this helpful, do subscribe, do share this with your friends, do come find me on Instagram, and I will see you in the next video.